Welcome to the Health Trip Podcast. My name is Jill Foose. I'm a functional medicine and integrative nutrition health coach. I created this podcast to bring you along as we travel down intriguing, science-packed roads, debunking old medical paradigms and perusing new innovative therapies and modalities with the finest functional medicine doctors, practitioners, and like-minded biohackers while living our best life. Enjoy the show. On today's podcast, we are going to unpack medical cannabis, the endocannabinoid system in our body, and how CBD and THC work synergistically to help patients live more pain-free, active, and fulfilling lives while they battle a variety of symptoms caused by diseases, cancer, and other illnesses. I'm excited to bring two very knowledgeable people on board today on the podcast to help explain it all for us. Diego and John are both patient care specialists at New Era Dispensary in Chicago. Hey guys, welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, before we start, I just want to throw in a little medical disclaimer. By listening to this podcast, you agree to not use this podcast as medical advice to treat any medical condition in either yourself or others. Consult your own physician for any medical issues that you may be having. This entire disclaimer also applies to any of my guests on my podcast. So let's dive into Cannabis 101. While cannabis has been used medicinally for thousands of years, the endocannabinoid system has only been discovered and studied during the 1980s. The endocannabinoid system is a nerve signaling system throughout the human body that helps maintain physiological, emotional, and cognitive stability and is made up of endocannabinoids, receptors, and enzymes. Endocannabinoids and their receptors are found throughout the body in the brain, organs, connective tissues, glands, and immune cells, and they regulate our sleep, mood, appetite, reproduction, and pain response. With its complex actions in our immune system, nervous system, and virtually all of the body's organs, the endocannabinoids are literally a bridge between body and mind. A deficiency in the system may exist and may be caused by a combination of genetic and environmental factors. Symptoms of an endocannabinoid deficiency may include lowered pain threshold and improper regulation of digestion, mood, and sleep. Researchers are starting to look at certain diseases such as IBS, Alzheimer's, and Parkinson's, and its connection to a possible endocannabinoid deficiency. So that is a mouthful. It's not just about getting high anymore like I did in high school and college.
Oh man.
No, not at all.
So I'm really thrilled to have you both here to really break this down for us. I'm super curious about the whole topic and would love to learn more. So this is going to be a great podcast for me and my community. But before we dive into some specific questions on this topic, please share with us your own journeys getting here and how you both ended up in this industry.
You want to start us off, Diego?
Yeah, sure. So I was a recent college graduate, had a bachelor's in health science. So studying health and human body was pretty much all I did during my educational career. The company is owned by a family friend, and so they offered me a job and I took it. I've been with the company since the beginning of the Chicago store, at least. I remember being there with only the manager and another employee and it was just three of us working. My jobs pretty much are just patient outreach. I answer questions for all the dispensaries in our company. If any patient has a question, whether it be about their application for a med card or just a question about a product, I'm usually the one that answers it, or I forward it to a manager who can answer it. I also manage our podcast, Full Spectrum, which is on Spotify and SoundCloud, and there we interview people in the industry, whether it be influencers, people who work selling seeds, selling hemp, growing, just a variety of different people with different skill sets, different backgrounds. And we like to talk about different issues like how to grow to the current social equity issues happening in today's industry, in Illinois specifically.
Mm-hmm. So after school, you didn't have any educational background in cannabis or the endocannabinoid system. You just dove right in, and it was on that journey that you started learning and educating yourself.
Yeah, well, I've been a user for a while, for a few years before I got into the industry. I did my own research, as anyone who's curious about cannabis in general. I know a lot of people are curious about it. Simple, just a Google search or a YouTube video. That was pretty much the extent of my education when it comes to cannabis. There aren't a whole lot of classes you can take about that in school. If there were, I would definitely have taken them just out of pure curiosity.
Right.
But I mean, I'm more self-educated, like most people are in this industry.
And John, what about you? What brought you to this industry?
Yeah, so I think it started off, at a young age, just kind of like experimenting and not seeing like really any medicinal benefits from it. And then after graduating college, I was involved in like a car accident and almost like died. Like the car was like totaled. It was in really rough shape, kind of a life-changing event. And from that point on, like anytime I'd be in a car and I wasn't driving, I'd freak out, almost like kind of PTSD from the whole experience. And then one day I noticed that like cannabis legitimately like helped that. Like I didn't feel that anxiousness or like that fear. Like I wouldn't scream like in the car if somebody ran a stop sign too quickly or didn't come to a complete stop or whatever it is. And so my friend actually got his medical card and told me about how I could get one. And at this point, I think it was still like a process where like you'd submit all your paperwork and it would take like 3 to like 6 months to actually like hear anything back. But when I got it, it was literally just the 24-hour like period. And it was like just at the beginning of that. So got my card and then I went to, I think, THC on the south side over off of Ogden. And then I heard about this dispensary called New Era, and they didn't have a menu at the time, like online. It was like mom and pop. So I was just so curious about this place. And when I went, I actually met this guy, one of the first people, since he works like the front desk. And then inadvertently was speaking to the manager, just like kind of shooting the shit for about an hour. And we were just going back and forth about like cannabis facts and just like our love for the plant and whatnot. And by the end of the conversation, he's like, if you want a job, you got it. And I was like, I never really considered like joining the industry, but like, yeah, like now that I'm seeing like the medicinal side of things, like I understand why there's so many advocates for this. Like it is an amazing plant. And so I said, screw it. And I took my chances and it's been an awesome ride ever since. He brought me on board with the podcast and now we've just been having fun, learning, getting to talk to people like you and other people in the local scene. So thanks for having us again.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's really interesting that you both shared, you didn't see any medicinal benefits to it when you first started using. And I have this, you guys could be like my kids, right? I'm a lot older than you. And back then when I was in high school and college and we were all getting high, we never even thought of medicinal benefits. We just did it because we wanted to get high and that's what people did, right? So it's so interesting now to me that it's all about the medicinal benefits. Not all about, but mostly about the medicinal benefits. When whoever you're talking to, especially as a functional medicine health coach, this conversation comes up quite often with my clients. Should they use it? Should they not use it? What will it do for them? How will it enhance them to reach their own unique health equation? So when we talk about cannabis, I want to assume that some of my community listening to this really has no experience and no insight into what we're talking about. Because there are still people out there who have never gotten high, believe it or not. Whenever I meet someone, I'm just like, wow, really? And that's great. So let's do a little bit of Cannabis 101 for the listeners. Start with the basic cannabis plant and share with us its different parts, the CBD, the THC, how they're extracted, and what this plant does for us, how it all works from the beginning.
So the cannabis plant is made up of several different cannabinoids, obviously the most popular being like THC. Like you said, at a young age, the reason you were smoking was, for recreational purposes, just like I think a lot of people start off with. But it's like after further use and like research, you realize that there's things like CBD, CBDD, CBG, CBC, CBN, like all these other cannabinoids that can be found in the cannabis plant that aren't just a part of that psychoactive spectrum. And so,
THC is the only psychoactive part of the plant, correct?
Exactly. Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So then all the other things you're listing off are just cannabinoids.
Yes, precisely.
But THC is a cannabinoid, but not the same as the others?
Precisely.
Okay.
All of CBD, CBN, CBG, all of the C's, THCA, THCV, all non-psychoactive. But that being said, they all provide different benefits from the plant. Like with CBD, for example, that's where you're going to get your anxiety relief and pain relief. Also sleep benefits. Whereas like with CBG, you're going to get some pain relief, but it's like also great for like ocular pressure. So people who suffer from like glaucoma. For CBN, I'm sure if you've gone into a dispensary in the last couple of years, you'd see that Cresco is like doing CBN tablets, or now like the latest infatuation is like the snoozeberry gummies and the sweet dreams gummies and all these like sleep-based products. And the majority of those have CBN. But what's important is that CBN on its own, CBD on its own, CBG on its own, all don't do anything without the aid of THC in the mix, because it's a symbiotic relationship. When you add that into the mix, it creates a different feeling. With CBD, you're getting that pain relief, that anxiety relief. With CBN, you're getting almost like, I'd say it's like an onset of like grogginess. Like it's great for sleep. Like you sleep like a baby. And it's like all these things provide different benefits, but most people just see the THC aspect of things. And so I remember when we first became recreational in 2020, people would come, they'd buy flower and they'd be like, this only says 2.1% THC and then like 20% THCA. Like, what are you guys trying to sell me? Like, blah, blah, blah. And we're like, relax. Like THCA is the precursor to THC. You just need to combust it and it turns into THC, which is the psychoactive effects that you're like looking for. And so it's like at that point that people began looking at like percentages and saying, oh, what is this like CBD number? What is this, CBN? Like, what is all this? Like people started to gain interest. And it's like, there's a whole world of like research that still hasn't been done on like any of this, but like people are now opening their eyes to like the benefits of all this. And like us being in such a young market, you go to California and you'll find like these products already. Like they've got their CBD, CBN, CBG, CBDD, CBC ratios in like different products down to like different sciences. And we're just on like the cusp of like getting there. So it's exciting. It is exciting. And once you start researching what these different cannabinoids do to you, it's a whole world of medicinal benefits that you can implement into your regimen to like enhance your life.
So it's really interesting that you're listing off all of the non-psychoactive components of the plant, but that THC is needed as sort of a guide to cross the blood-brain barrier in order for it to work optimally. So then why are CBD and other products that are non-psychoactive sold without THC combined with it?
So it's
and
funny,
do they work?
It's funny you ask that. And I think depending on who you ask, you'll get different answers. We had a woman on the podcast, I believe her name was Venus.
Yeah, deep CBD.
Yeah, deep CBD. She provided like great insight, and her take on everything was that CBD on its own is still psychoactive, just at a very tiny, like almost like an unnoticeable portion. Like she's claiming that while you may not feel like any psychoactive effects like you would have like the THC, you will feel like minor anxiety reduction or enhanced sleep, or like you eat enough CBD, like enough of a CBD tincture, it might be conducive. But like in my experience, I can see some validity to that. Like I've gone to like the CBD kratom shops and bought like the 1500 milligram CBD tincture and like the CBD pet treats for, my cats and dogs or whatever. And I've seen like a little bit of it. It's not very like noticeable, but the minute you add any form of THC into that mix, that's where it becomes very apparent. And I think adding THC almost heightens the effect, because you have some people that swear by CBD. And for, I think, avid like cannabis users, those effects are just not like visible. And so I think CBD caters to a market for the people who don't really smoke or who don't really have that curiosity to try THC and just really want to seek that the healing benefit. But like what people don't really understand is that to maximize that, you do need just a little bit of THC in there. But that being said, I can see why people sell just CBD. Like, I don't think it is just like a snake oil. Like, obviously, if you go and you're buying it at a gas station or like some convenience mart, I don't think it's really the best stuff. But if you're going to a place that's like specialized, or if you're going to like Deep CBD, you know, Venus's website to purchase her stuff, I think you're buying legit stuff. And like, I think those places are also open for one, like when you go to a dispensary, you don't see just like a lot of options where it's like super low THC and just high CBD. So when people come in and they're experiencing like severe chronic pain or nerve pain or fibromyalgia or like whatever it may be, and we don't have something like a 1-to-1 tincture or like a 1-to-1 RSO or 2-to-1 RSO, something that's really going to benefit their pain relief and actually have them be able to function throughout like their work day, that's my recommendation, is to like go to CBD Kratom or like, you know, licensed CBD shop that's reputable, that's going to have what are they, we just did an episode with them where like essentially where you can see where the CBD is coming from, where it's got
This COAs.
yeah, COAs,
Yeah.
a COA, essentially a COA. So I like
Is
to
that a third party
testing? Yeah,
testing?
facility.
Okay.
Yeah, to make
And
sure
is that on the label for people to see? Or do you
so
ask to see that?
with good CBD producers, yes, that should be on the label, or you can request it and they'll have that for you. But if you go to like a gas station or convenience mart, you know you're not gonna
Right.
find one of those, which is why like I think it is imperative to have those shops around, because then I can send a chronic pain patient with like a syringe of RSO, and then I can tell them, hey, look for like a high CBD tincture to supplement to really maximize like your pain relief. So I think that's
what
why you
is
see that.
RSO?
RSO stands for Rick Simpson oil. Do you wanna get into
Yeah,
that?
it's basically it's a type of extract that's highly concentrated THC. It's I mean, if I can describe it, it's a lot stronger than your average edible. Really, it's typically made to help with inflammation, a lot of different other things. Rick Simpson was the man who created it. He grew his own plants and he extracted his own oil. It's basically just concentrated THC oil, if I'm going to be completely honest.
Yeah, THC and like all the other cannabinoids within that plant, because you're using all of the plant matter to create this like honey like thick,
Bitter
sometimes
tasting.
dark, yeah, very extremely weedy, bitter tasting substance. But like Rick used it because it was like a form of skin cancer, and so he was trying like traditional medicines and like was not seeing any benefits, and he was in Canada at the time, and so it's like, screw this, none of this is working, let me like take matters into my own hands. So just a heads up, sorry, don't mean to like stop, but I do have a couple cats.
Oh, that's okay. I've got dogs, so
Okay.
we're
one is very vocal.
we're all casual here. Keep going.
Okay. So yeah, he wasn't seeing any of the benefits from like Western medicine. And so he's like, let me try this holistic approach. And what he facilitated was this recipe for this like concentrated oil, which if you actually go to his website, you can find. And in this oil, he puts the entire plant matter. He extracts it, I think, with like ethanol, but you can do CO2. There's like different forms of how you can create this liquid now. But what results is like this very potent, thick extract that you can apply topically, that you can eat. In some cases, you could even dab, even though I don't recommend it. I believe it's like CO2 extracts. Fact check me on that before anyone listens to that advice, please. Just want to give a little disclaimer. But yeah, he ended up applying that to like his like area, and he saw like it cleared his like skin cancer. And after like seeing that, he was telling his doctors, and his doctors were just like, dude, you're crazy, like whatever. And he's like, fine, like I'm just gonna grow cannabis plants and I'm gonna help cancer patients and other people who are suffering from ailments. And he was doing it for free. He was doing it for free for a very long time. And people would just come to his place, get the oil or get the cannabis, and they were seeing so much relief until he was arrested for it, which is crazy because he was healing people. But what results is this oil, and it's been like tried and true, and now that's what you see in dispensaries all across the US is this like
So he got
wonderful
arrested,
medicine.
but now it's actually a product.
Now
Yeah.
it's actually a product, and now he's
Love
living
that.
in the UK, if I'm not mistaken, just kind of like away from everything. But I know he was giving like presentations and whatnot, like still like preaching about it because he did eventually get out. But yeah, I mean, it's RSO is like when people are really suffering from medicinal like ailments, like that is like the go-to. Like that is like my go-to. But like in this market today, you see cultivators, since it's so limited, I think there's like 12, a little over 12. They're catering more to like the recreational like side of things. So you see less of these like 1401 RSOs or 4-to-1 RSOs, these 2-to-1 RSOs, or like these CBD flower mixes. And that's kind of like lame, which is why I think you also, to like bring everything full circle, which is why you need those like CBD kratom shops around. They're minus the kratom, sorry.
Okay, so what you're basically saying, I just want to summarize this. You're saying that CBD and all the C's or CBN on its own will have a very minor effect, but when matched with an RSO or some type of THC, you're going to get more of an optimal medicinal benefit from it
Precisely, yeah.
because it's crossing the blood-brain barrier.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's pretty much called the entourage effect. And that not only happens with CBD and THC, that can typically happen with terpenes as well. Like myrcene and THC put together, they typically form that couch lock you experience when you do smoke the THC flower. So like one amplifies the other, and that just creates that type of sensation. And that can happen with different terpenes as well.
And I can attest to this. I've had this type of experience. I love CBN. I think CBN, as a midlife woman going through menopause, and maybe we'll just jump to that section here because that's my reality. Sleeping is always really challenging, even if you're on bioidentical hormones like progesterone, which is our sleep hormone. And I found that when I took just the CBN plain, a tincture, and I put some drops sublingually, that did not help me. But when I took the snoozeberry, which is the product you're talking about, where it is mixed with THC, now that really is amazing. It knocks me out, and it's the most pleasant sleep. And when I wake up in the morning, there is zero hangover, zero feeling that I took this CBN slash THC product and I go about my day. And some people might sit here and judge me as a functional medicine health coach taking CBN with some THC, so it crosses the blood-brain barrier, so I get more bang for my buck. But I am very productive the next day and I feel great. And so if I'm not feeling any of that sludge afterwards, to me, it's great. And now this is something I can't, in the state of Illinois as a health coach, recommend, but I can absolutely recommend people go see you guys and talk to you, which I will do at the end. But, I do have some clients who take just CBD, and it's very difficult to find only CBN. Very difficult to find that. And they are not seeing the results that they want. So that's really interesting. I have that experience.
Yeah, they definitely should try products with THC in it. I know we see a lot of patients who are just like, we tell us straight up, we don't want anything with THC. I don't want to feel high. I just don't want to, I don't want to be like that. I just want strictly CBD. And it's fine. Yeah. But like, I think it's best for you to be open-minded. Product like that.
And I think when people really find like their ratio, their regimen, like I love when new people come in and they're like, I don't want to feel high. And I'm like, look, this is going to be like a science experiment, because like we're going to have to tailor your regimen, and like your biology is different than like mine. So like what may work for me is not going to be the same what works for you. It may.
Exactly.
Like we're going to have to like test that out. So it's like, it's funny seeing when they find their like perfect dosage, because when you find that perfect dosage to get medicated and not for like a recreational purpose, you don't feel high. You feel normal. Like you just feel like normal. You just feel like you can just be. And I think that's a feeling that once people see, they're just like woke, they're enlightened. And like that's how I felt like post car accident. I was like, I can just be like it's a tremendous feeling. And I feel like when people see the medicinal side of things, it's just kind of like an awakening.
More than anything, it's symptom relief.
Mm-hmm.
And just think of the craziest symptoms you have, and that's what cannabis is used for. I mean, people kind of think, oh, it's gonna cure me of whatever this is, but it's not really. Think of all the reasons that whatever you're suffering from is holding you back. Cannabis is a way to make you work with it, deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yes, I
Once
would
you think,
agree.
yeah, once you think about it like that, like you'd be more open to trying it, because
Mhm.
it is just an alternative to other types.
I mean,
of
I
drugs.
can tell you that I have probably 80% of my clients that come to me come with a list of, I don't know, 10 to 15 pharmaceuticals that
Mhm.
they take every day, some to go to bed, some to wake up, and some for all the in between. Right.
Mhm.
And so any day of the week, I would rather have someone implement CBD, CBN with a tiny bit of THC to help feel those benefits versus pharmaceuticals that are destroying your gut microbiome and leading to other inflammation in your body.
Mhm.
So I would agree with that. With hormone replacement therapy, and I know this is not something that's on the list of being able to go get your med card for, but do you see, because part of your dispensary is recreational now, do you see women coming in to use it in conjunction with hormone replacement therapy?
I mean, like, I know for menopause with decreasing levels of estrogen that can cause joint pain from inflammation, CBD works perfect for that. I know there's a Harley Quinn, that's a strain, CBD strain with RSO. People use that for joint pain,
Mhm.
and I can just assume that that's what's used for, you know, when you're going through menopause, lower estrogen levels, that type of, that would just be an alternative to use
Yeah,
as a
and
supplement.
if I'm being honest, like I haven't really had many people open up to me about that. So
Right.
this is kind of like new territory for me, but like I'm assuming based on your experience, like you've had success with that as well.
Absolutely. I've had so much success. I only take the one product and that's all I need.
Mhm.
And what you're saying about people feeling like they don't want to experience the psychoactive part of feeling high
Mhm.
if they're taking a product, I would have to say with the snoozeberry in particular, by the time the high would kick in, you're already fast asleep.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
And so I basically miss any of the psychoactive component. I get a great night's sleep. I wake up, I'm refreshed and ready to go the next day. Now, if I don't take it, if I didn't have that in my life and take it, and also I take progesterone, but it just isn't, it doesn't work as good alone, but
Mhm.
combined, it's just the magic elixir for me.
Mhm.
Um, if I wake up and I'm not feeling good from it, I wouldn't pursue it. But
Mhm.
because I feel so great the next day, it just works for me. But you're right. Everybody's biochemical reactions are completely different than the next person. It's just like in health coaching. There is no one size fits all approach. It's
Mhm.
a little bit of, you have to experiment and be open-minded, but it definitely works for me during my menopause journey.
Mhm.
So love it.
Yeah.
But let's talk about endocannabinoids because that is a really confusing system. I'm going to estimate that many people out there don't even know that we have an endocannabinoid system in us,
Yeah.
which is really, really cool that we do. So can you talk about that system and the receptors and the enzymes and just how it all works together?
Yeah, just to basically break it down, it can get really complicated, especially with the names of all the endocannabinoids your body produces, not even counting the cannabinoids. But I guess to sum it up, there are these three components. There are the endocannabinoids, which are these chemical messengers that your body creates on its own. There are the receptors on your cell walls, and the ones I'm going to be talking about are going to be around in your brain specifically, because those control motor function, sleep, rest, and overall the endocannabinoid system is all about homeostasis. How your mood, you feel your emotions, whether or not you'd feel like energy, that motivation to do anything. All that has to do with your endocannabinoid system. And to go back to the three main components, there's going to be the endocannabinoids, the cannabinoid receptors and just the enzymes that eat up all the endocannabinoids once they've served their purpose. So endocannabinoids are just, like I said, chemical messengers your body produces. Cannabinoids like CBD and THC, those are kind of the same chemical messengers. So pretty much in your body, when you have an endocannabinoid, it binds to one of the receptors in your body, CB1 and CB2. Once it binds to one of those, it's able to access the cell and perform its function. I guess for example would be for THC, it binds to the CB1 receptor, and that initiates a reaction where your neurons release dopamine, and that's how you feel that sensation of being high. So large amounts of dopamine, and that's just an example of THC.
Wait, so CB1 is a type of receptor, but it's only found in the nervous system, like in the brain.
Yeah.
And that's not the rest of the body. So CB1 is very specific to the brain.
Yeah, to the brain. There are different receptors for different parts of your body, different your tissues, your internal organs. I believe CB2 is most commonly found in your intestinal tract.
Yeah, your immune system.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So the endocannabinoids go to the receptors and bind to them, and then that's how they're activated.
Yeah, that's how they're able to initiate the rest of that synapse, which allows those neurons to release dopamine.
And how are endocannabinoids produced within our body?
I mean, they're just produced by cells, I believe. Different cells, like different like enzymes kind of excrete. I'm not exactly entirely sure about how those are produced. I just know your body produces them, and they're used to signal different functions.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I were to say as an example, how to your ability to feel hungry. Endocannabinoid comes binds to a receptor, releases a chemical reaction. Your cells produce other chemical messengers that tells your body to be hungry, and then once those endocannabinoids or that other endocannabinoids then bind to those receptors again to shut them off, and it's just kind of like a loop, that could. And this is just as broken down as I can make it without getting too specific about it.
Too technical.
Yeah.
Okay. So the cannabinoid receptors are found on the surface of certain cells, but not every cell in our body.
Yeah, not every cell.
Okay. And then the enzymes break down the endocannabinoids after they're used.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And why do they do that? What's happening after it's used, and why does the enzyme then come in and break it down further?
I guess to lessen their effect. I mean, the more endocannabinoids there are, the more your body's going to be feeling that mood of hunger, sleep, tired, or whatever it is they're experiencing. And those enzymes are kind of just there to make sure that there's like a balance, homeostasis.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And what's interesting is that CBD can kind of bind to some of these. They can actually inhibit these enzymes, allowing for that kind of effect, the cannabinoid effect, to be stronger. So then you don't have these enzymes breaking down CBD because it kind of just inhibits it.
Can some people have a lot of endocannabinoids and others be deficient in endocannabinoids?
I mean, I'm sure
that's a good question.
I'm sure that there can be. Like I said, I'm not an expert. This is just kind of what I remember from my schooling, because we did kind of read up about the endocannabinoid system. But I'm sure there is. Yeah. Not to be so like weird about answering your question. Vague, yeah.
Is the endocannabinoid system working even if we're not using CBD, CBN, or THC?
Yeah, all the time. That's how it regulates all the different types of functions. It produces like mood, hunger, sleep, etc.
And so when we take CBN, CBD, or THC, any of the combinations, that just activates it so that it can do its job a little bit more?
Yeah, it inhibits the enzyme that breaks down endocannabinoids. And it kind of just boosts that function.
I mean, the human body is just so freaking cool.
It's all about receptors and chemical messengers binding and changing their shape, allowing openings and closings to occur. And that's how it is. Because once you create that chemical reaction, that function, there needs to be something that also binds to it to let it know to stop. So it's all automatic, but at the same time, they all work together. And if one thing doesn't work, then that's where you have an issue.
So if somebody has cancer or Alzheimer's, is their endocannabinoid system not working as well as it should? And that's why when if they take any of these cannabinoids, that will help reverse what's going on, or at least mitigate symptoms?
I'd say it just mitigates symptoms more than anything. I know with cancer patients, the chemotherapy, that's a lot of nausea, that's a lot of pain, that's a lot of internal, strife you're going through, and CBD, THC, all of that there is just to help with symptoms, make you feel hungry, make you feel tired so you can sleep and kind of manage that pain. Chronic pain users, RSO, heavy dose of RSO it's like everything to them to keep them off whatever type of pharmaceuticals they were used to taking. I know it's not anywhere in comparison. Any doctor you talk to will tell you, no, they're not the same. But if you're gonna try to get off pharmaceutical and you need something to help you deal with it, RSO is just your best bet because you won't get addicted. You can kick it off anytime you want. You can use RSO every day for years and then stop, and it'll have some effects. Like you'll feel something. It'll have some long-term effects, but not like long-term. You'll be able to kick it within like a few weeks, and then you won't be able to and it won't it won't interrupt your life or anything at all. It'll just be like a little kink you're trying to work through, and that's it, as opposed to getting off heavy opiates.
Yeah, it's not like the opioid crisis.
Gosh, speaking of the opioid crisis, I just started that. I think it's on Netflix. It's called Dope Sick with Michael Keaton. If you haven't seen it, you've got to watch it. It's all about the opioid crisis, and it's just incredible. And any day of the week, I would rather be taking RSO, even though I've never taken it, but what you've described over opioids any day of the week. I mean, it's crazy, but check it out on Netflix. What are some of the most common diseases or disorders that medical cannabis use is legalized for?
Glaucoma is one, and that's a classic example of cannabis actually treating and helping with that disease instead of just mitigating symptoms, because it reduces the intraocular pressure, allowing more blood flow so people are able to see more clearly. I also
want to say it's like PTSD. Like, I feel like that's a condition that people will sometimes scoff at because they just don't know. But I feel like everyone's had a traumatic experience in their life that sometimes just resonates with them for a really long time. And cannabis is really one of the only things to help keep that in check. And I don't know. I just want people to know it's a real thing, and it's a thing that a lot of people suffer from. And if you feel like you do indeed suffer from that, then I think cannabis should be something that you consider, especially with some CBD in the mix. But I don't know. As someone who suffers from that, I think it's imperative to bring that to the forefront, because I think a lot of people do. And I mean, obviously you have a lot of veterans who come in too, but I think it's something that should be talked about. Yeah, glaucoma is another big one. Fibromyalgia. I mean,
muscular dystrophy.
Yeah, muscular dystrophy.
There's actually a
Crohn's specifically.
There's actually a nasal spray with THC and CBD called Sativex for muscular dystrophy. No idea where it's at. I don't think it's in the US, but that exists. And
there was Nature's Grace used to actually have a spray. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Nature's Grace had a nasal spray.
And epilepsy, I want to say, is another big one. If you suffer from seizures all the time, especially even little kids, I'm sure everyone's seen the Vice documentaries or just whatever, where the little kid is just epileptic and having severe seizures, and this is the one thing to help calm it. So I mean, really, I think that question is kind of it's a good question, but I think cannabis can help you in so many facets of your life. It shouldn't. I hate how there's a list to get a medical card.
Yep.
That's what upsets me, because if you can regiment this into your life to where it's benefiting you, then like that is a medicinal aspect of it. And like everyone's different, that like to what it pertains to is just different for everyone. But as long as it's healing, like that's what we're here for, you know? Like, sure, the recreational side of things is fun from time to time, but like I don't medicate every day for that purpose. I medicate to medicate, you know? This is
Right.
my Xanax or my Norco or whatever the equivalent to whatever it was that you were on is. Like, this is what keeps me in check, and this is what makes me feel like my best.
Yep. So with patients that come in with glaucoma, Crohn's, epilepsy, all cancer, all this stuff, are there physicians sending them to get their med card? Are they helping them? Or because, most traditionally trained physicians are there to write scripts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so it's kind of weird. Most people's physicians, a lot of times they say, well, my doctor won't prescribe me, but my doctor doesn't approve, my doctor doesn't want this. And most people can't get their med cards because it kind of just stops at the doctor. Like it's not because they're wholeheartedly against cannabis. They just don't know enough about it, and they don't want to make a professional opinion about it, out of fear of controversy, because there are doctors out there who get their medical degree from some university out of the country, and they're able to practice here, and all they do is do certifications or medical cards, and they charge people $300 each, and that's all they do. And most physicians, like my father, he'll certify a patient if the qualifying conditions and everything whatnot, but he's not going to make that his practice.
Mhm.
They don't want to get confused with a practice that does that, and it just kind of, like I said, draws controversy.
Yep.
But like, we do have doctors that send patients on. There are many cannabis friendly doctors out
Yeah.
there who don't just focus on cannabis. They have their whole practice that treat other patients for many different things, but they are cannabis friendly, and they do send their customers to us, and we've heard nothing but like good feedback from that. Like, it's, for most people, it's the greatest thing they can get. It's the greatest solution, because they can use cannabis as much as they want, as long as they want, without having to worry about kind of consulting with their doctor and being limited to what they can do. Like,
And like a lot of these like practices, like these doctors, they'll come from like private institutions like Northwestern and specific, like it's from their head honcho that they don't want any of their doctors prescribing anyone. So if your doctor's at Northwestern and you're listening to this, good luck getting a medical card from your doctor, and like they could support it, but like if it's a private organization and they're telling you no, like there's nothing they can do. Meanwhile, you have other like family long doctors that won't prescribe it unless you're like terminally ill. Like it's like the end of things. And I feel like, why? And the reason I say this is because when you hear of like Dr. Consulter, Innovative, or Soul Wellness, or like all these other doctors that specialize in getting you medical cards, I feel like there's a notion, like a negative notion, like, oh, it's a money grab, this is the one thing they do. Like, no, like these people have seen the benefits of the medicine. These people come into the dispensary and are using the medicine on their daily regimen, and they see the benefits, and this is why they do it. This shouldn't detract from like their medical degree and like their practice. Just because Northwestern isn't approving it doesn't mean that this is something that should be like hidden under the the shadows. So like, I don't know, I just want it to be known that there should be no credit taken away from these people that are doing this, that are running a business off this, because they saw the benefits themselves. You go in and you talk to one of them, they essentially will tell you what strains, what products to try for your specific like ailments. Why? Because they're doctors and they've seen the benefits. So I honestly, I think it's worth it. That's how I went about getting my medical card, because I didn't have like a primary physician, and I never looked back. And I'm so happy. I'm so happy with the decision. And I think everyone who makes the jump is, and like, there's nothing that makes me happier than seeing someone who was like, this was their last thing. Like, this is the last thing that they wanted to try was cannabis, because they've never
Right.
smoked it before. But here they are, their doctor's like, look, we've tried everything, just freaking try this.
Right.
And then they come, and the next day or their next visit, they're like, holy crap, like this is life changing. Like
Right.
the amount of people that have like thanked me, like thanked like coworkers, like it's crazy. And it's always like an insane feeling because it just, it says RSO changed my life or this plant changed my life. And like, that's a crazy feeling. Like that's a
Yeah.
crazy feeling.
Yeah, John, you bring up a good point with the traditional doctors that are not open to prescribing or helping their patients get a medical card to help them, versus the traditional doctors who decided to go out in private practice to help assess and write, help these patients get their medical cards, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're private, so they're getting paid. It's
Mhm.
not going through insurance, right? And so
Mhm.
then people look at them and they say they're out there just to make the money. I have to look at it like I look at traditional versus functional medicine doctors. Traditional doctors take insurance, but they will not give you everything that you want. So if my clients go in there and say, I need to get a more comprehensive blood panel because I want to have a look at everything that's going on inside my body. Most often or not, the traditionally trained Western doctor will say, you don't need all of that. This is what you're getting, right? And
Mhm.
it's a very simple blood panel. Versus functional medicine doctors who say, to hell with it, we're done with that because that's not helping our patients. Our patients are not moving forward and they're not healing and they're not getting better. They're not thriving. So they leave and they go to get their functional medicine license and they practice as a functional medicine MD, but cannot get insurance. So now
Mhm.
it's cash pay. And so it's the same thing, right? You have to pay. It's unfortunate that our health insurance will not cover holistic approaches to healing and overall health and wellness, because that's what works. But instead, insurance will cover any pharmaceutical that you're taking,
Mhm.
right? And
Yeah.
someone's making an awful lot of money off of that.
Yeah, you see the hypocrisy in that. And I think people are starting to also like catch on. And I think the only thing that will like bring about that change it'll just come down to like federal legalization. And I know we were like promised that, not to get all political, but like we'll see if that like actually like happens. And I hope, just like every other cannabis advocate hopes, but like if we really want to have that avenue open where insurance just covers everything, we need to see federal legalization. And I pray to God that hope sooner than later.
I mean, as a menopausal woman, health insurance doesn't even cover bioidentical hormone therapy.
That's ridiculous.
If you want to take hormones, you have to take synthetic hormones that are detrimental to your overall health, but they'll be covered. But if you take bioidenticals, which are much better for you, much safer, it's not covered. It's just a crazy healthcare system that we live in.
It is. I don't,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't,
And
I don't
and
understand.
I would suspect that by the time someone with cancer or IBS or glaucoma gets to you, you are their last stop. You're probably the seventh stop they've made, and they just can't deal with their reality anymore of the pain and discomfort.
Yeah.
And they've had to ask, 15 different people or read an article, something that triggered a light bulb moment at them to say, change courses, go this route, and let's just try it out.
Yeah. No, that's precisely it. Like, just a
Yeah.
little side story. I had a friend who, she's been coming in for like a long time, and she was like straight edge in high school, like the nerdy kind of like quiet girl, would like play tennis, the whole thing, but would never like try cannabis. But she was like in and out of the hospital, suffering from like stomach and like digestion issues all of her life, to the point where she was like super thin, like just not living like a normal high school kid like should. And so it wasn't until after in like college where like she was told by a friend, like, hey, like you've tried everything, like you're in rough shape, like just like eat an edible, like smoke this, like just try something. Like people are swearing by this. From that point on, it changed her life. She got a medical card. Like she applied for her medical card the next day. And it's been such a life-changing experience for her. And like now, we're friends, and she just you just see like the light in her eyes because she saw like the medicinal benefit. Like she told me, she's like, I could have died. Like I could have died, and like this was like life changing for me. Like I don't think you realize that. Like I could have died, and now I'm like in such a better place because of this thing. And it's like that can be out there for people, especially people struggling in like this opioid crisis, or just kind of stuck on like pharmaceuticals that they've been prescribed with all their life because that's all they know. That's all the doctors have prescribed them. And not to discredit the doctors, this is like what they're taught. But like,
Right.
if there's like a holistic approach that's better, like explore it, like
Absolutely.
explore it. Like, what's the worst? What's the worst that can happen?
That's right. Absolutely. What I guess I can't be in this podcast without talking about addiction.
Yes.
And how have you seen addiction correlating with the use of CBD or CBN that have THC in there? Do you see addiction happening? And what are your thoughts on that?
So addiction, I don't like to use that word addiction. I like to use the word habit forming, and cannabis is very, very habit forming. And it's kind of I guess for an example, if you're using it to treat depression, cannabis should only be used to treat depression in the short term for symptom relief. If you're so depressed you can't get up in the morning, you're so depressed you just can't stop thinking about something, so depressed you can't eat, you don't feel good, you don't feel motivated to do anything, yeah, you should use cannabis. It'll get you it'll give you that kind of that pep, and you're able to kind of just go through life feeling a little bit better than. Well, at the same time, you have to be working on your own issues, like personal issues.
Mhm.
There's for depression, and it's a way to help you on your journey to heal from that. A lot of people, they just get so high they can't even leave bed. But hey, as long as their minds are stimulated, that's good, and to them that's how they treat it. And so it just becomes like a habit where if I don't use it, I'm going to feel depressed, so I need it. And you're smoking every day. You're smoking in the morning, when you wake up, you hit a bowl, bong, light a joint, hit your vape. In the afternoon, you take a 50 milligram edible and you're smoking. And even at work too, on your breaks, you leave work, go to the bathroom, hit your vape, go to your car, smoke a bowl. And then when you get off work, you smoke again. So you're constantly smoking. You're in a constant state of being high. And long term, that'll just make you even more depressed. Because see, the more your neurons, the more your cells produce dopamine, and the more they continuously do it nonstop, eventually, like when you don't smoke, your body just doesn't produce those in that same amount that you're used to. And then you just don't really feel happy to only when you're smoking weed. And with your tolerance, you have to smoke a lot. And then right there, you're just sluggish. You can't really think straight. You have horrible memory loss. You're eating all the time. You just feel bloated. You feel heartburn all the time. It's hard for you to really just get up and do something, but you're okay because you're feeling happy. But then again, you're heavily slowed down by that. And then whenever you don't smoke, and if you don't want to spend your typical 150 a week on cannabis, you want to take a break, you're just feeling just even more depressed. There are studies out there. I know I've looked, there are several studies out there that say that long-term cannabis use for depression is a terrible idea.
Yeah. And in that case, like it's imperative that like you're working on yourself, and like this example, like this is someone who's just depressed and just using cannabis. Like if you're really depressed and you want to get out of that funk, cannabis can be used to help, but like it's going to take you to like get motivation to like go to the gym, to eat healthier, to sleep earlier, to do those things. And so if you're not, then yeah, like this, just like anything, it can be an excess of like drinking too much pot, smoking cigarettes, or like whatever. Like you do too much in excess, it's going to have negative effects. But if you're doing it with the right intentions and the medicinal benefits that like you're seeking, you have this regimen, then I think you're okay. But if you're just sitting there nonchalant, complacent, and depressed and not doing anything about it, then I think you're setting yourself up for failure. Yeah.
But as you know, in the world of addiction, it is, people are genetically disposed to addiction. Their brain is wired completely different.
Mhm.
And so it's that person that starts smoking or using CBD with THC or whatever combination they're using. And it's that light bulb moment that goes off and their brain lights on fire. And that's the addiction. That's the
Mhm.
pull. And
Mhm.
so how do recreational dispensaries, how can they manage that? Or I guess I guess you can't control that. So what do they do about that?
I mean, what I would recommend to someone would be if you have to smoke every day, like you give yourself, I would suggest give yourself a week break as a tolerance break, so you don't need to keep using to get the area that you're used to. But if you have to use every day, uh, you should get different products for different parts of your day. Like if you're on the go somewhere at work, you should get a cartridge that'll make you last longer. If you're in the morning, use a bowl because that can serve as cannabis, but don't get mind-numbingly stoned. What some people like to do. Like some people like to take a dab. Oh, exhale. All right, cool. They're feeling it, and then take another one because they want to feel it even more. And then like a couple hours later, they take two more in a row, and they just want to get as high as they possibly can. And that's something you shouldn't do. You should just take a few hits, and that's it. Keep your tolerance low. If you keep your tolerance consistently low, you only need a little bit to get you to where you want to be, and you won't have those other symptoms, those other side effects, I would say, of being completely,
Right. But if
Mhm.
you're an addict, you're an addict. If you're an
Yeah.
addict
Yeah.
and that gets triggered in your brain and you're like, wow, okay, I want more of that. Even, a lot of people say it's just weed. It's not cocaine. It's not heroin. But I know that it is habit forming. And that is another way of saying addiction.
Mhm.
And so I look at a lot of high school and college kids, and I think how many of them have ADD, ADHD, anxiety, depression, whatever it is. And now that there's there's access to recreational dispensaries, and even if they're not of age, they know someone of age to go get it for them. And that is how that starts. And I do think there is a huge problem. And these kids are on Adderall, they're on Ritalin, but that changes the way that they feel about themselves. It changes their personality.
Mhm.
And so they go and they get THC so that they can self-medicate themselves and
Mhm.
try, like we're talking about the endocannabinoid system that wants to create homeostasis in your body at all times. I have a lot of experience with kids who have ADD and ADHD who are taking pharmaceuticals to help them, but who self-regulate with weed. And it's to find that state of homeostasis within
Mhm.
that spectrum of pharmaceuticals and weed.
Yeah, that whole Vyvanse, Adderall,
Yep.
Ritalin, that's a whole epidemic like in itself.
Yep.
Like the amount of like popularity that things like gained, like in high school, I don't think I remember hearing about it much, but like the minute I got to college, it was rampant. And then leaving college and talking to younger people, it just seems like it's more and more prevalent. And like what a lot of people don't understand is like with those medications, like you're put in like that flight or fight status, like for like hours. Like you're not supposed to work out on it. People do. Like there's so many like health effects with that. And I actually had a former roommate who was taking it for his prescribed ADD, and he was supplementing with cannabis like every day. And not to get into too much, but like other stuff, and like that screwed up his balance like forever. Like it really like left like a long lasting effect on him. And I saw the deterioration begin, because freshman year he wasn't taking any of it. Then sophomore year, heavily, he just increased the dose by junior year, and then by senior year it was just like a different person for like the worst. So it's like I don't want to sit here and say that like cannabis is for everyone, because it's not.
Right.
But if it works for you and you get the medicinal benefits from it and you're using it responsibly, then that I don't see it any worse than like an ibuprofen or a glass of wine at the end of the night, if that's what's going to take care of you. But if you do have that highly addictive personality and you're using it to like supplement for some deeper demons, then like you should really consider if this is right for you. And some people even have like allergies to cannabis to where you can't smoke, like it makes them like throw up physically. So like I know we just sat here today and spoke about like all the benefits of like THC and CBD and everything, but like it is not for everyone, and that should be like a disclaimer. Like
Absolutely. There's definitely a dark side to it.
Mhm.
And the longer you use consistently every day, the worse it's going to be when you do stop eventually. I mean, if we're going to talk about people who shouldn't be using cannabis, those are people who are prone to just paranoia. Because, like I said, there's a study by Joel Cohen of the National Institute of Health gave THC and various different forms to 8 people. 6 of the people felt a heightened motivation, euphoric, felt happy, better, but that wore off as soon as the cannabis wore off. Even during that trial period, every time it wore off, it was back to the same emotions. Over a certain number of time, certain amount of time, they felt the same way they did before taking the THC, and it showed it didn't really have any long-term effects. But 2 of them felt enormous amounts of paranoia to the point where they were contemplating suicide even.
Mhm.
Like like things they were thinking about and afraid of things that they never they were paranoid, but they never really thought of it before taking cannabis. But after using cannabis over a certain period of time, they couldn't, like, so to speak, they couldn't leave the house. They couldn't really just function. They couldn't make friendships or relationships because they were just too paranoid and insecure about that. And cannabis, they believe, made it worse.
Yeah,
far
100%.
worse. So people who are prone to paranoia really shouldn't be smoking. I mean, you can smoke, like I said, like you can't just be doing it every day to where you're as high as you can possibly be.
Right.
And that's sorry to cut it. And like that's just to like bring everything full circle. And that's another reason why like these CBD shops should be a thing. Like one of my best buddies from college, he will take a hit of like my joint like once every blue moon. But the last time I saw him, he was buying CBD flower and like smoking it. Like that's what was like getting him. And he was mixing just a little pinch of like THC in the mix. And that's what worked for him. Like that was like his anxiety reduction. And so I feel like that should be like an option for like people, but it's all about like finding that like regimen and really seeing like if it is for you. And if you are like that highly addictive like person and you're doing this for like the recreational things, then you should be aware of like the side effects, of like the long lasting side effects of you using this over a prolonged period of time.
Absolutely. I think it's just like when I health coach, you've got to find out as much information about yourself, whether it's through blood work, whether it's through life experience, whether it's through, if you're working with a therapist on emotional or psychological issues, you have to be the discoverer of yourself and make those highly educated, intelligent decisions before you do anything like this. So we're here to talk about all the medicinal benefits, but of course there is a dark side to this, which we mentioned, and you have to be a responsible user. And as soon as you aren't a responsible user, that's when you start going down a really dark path for it could be a very long time, if not forever, for some people.
No, I agree. I agree.
So we're coming to an end. I have a couple more questions for you. For both of you, what are your top 3 lifestyle practices to support a healthy endocannabinoid system?
Well, for me, I would say sobriety breaks. Like I don't take any substances, like no cannabis, no nicotine, no alcohol, no, not even Tums. I won't even take those. I absolutely nothing except protein-rich foods for, let's say, a couple weeks, or honestly for as long as I'm able to keep that attention span to where I kind of want to go through that. And of course, there's going to be times my friends are going on, and I'm like, okay, I want to put a break on this sobriety break and try it out. But what I like to do is I just try to go as long as I can without anything else, and hopefully that'll make me, because that does make my mood better naturally. That's just one of the practices I do.
So you're saying take a break from using CBD, THC, CBN, all of that. You take a break, and you're doing that for what reason? How is that supporting your endocannabinoid system? Is it making your system less dependent on?
I wouldn't say it makes it less dependent. I'd say any foreign substances like cannabinoids, it's going to disrupt your endocannabinoid system. It's going to disrupt homeostasis to a bit. Of course, your body will always bring it back to normal. But the more, if you're like me, I'm a user, I use every day. It's going to be imbalanced to some degree, and especially with alcohol or other types of substances. What I like to do is I just take a complete break, let my body get back to where it's, it's supposed to be, if that's so to speak, or
Your
just its own
baseline.
its own homeostasis. It's never good. It's never good to do too much for
I totally get that. I totally get taking the break. There are times where I take a supplement holiday. I call it a supplement holiday, not a sobriety break. But so for me, I'll stop taking all of my supplements for 1 month, maybe every 6 to 8 months. And I take a bunch of supplements to support my health issues, but I'll take a break for a month. And because it's also hard to keep up on, taking everything at the right time, being having it, taking it all daily, keeping that routine in place. It can get pretty cumbersome. So I always suggest to my clients as well, take a supplemental holiday for 1 month and then get back to your routine. So that I understand. Okay, so that's one thing to support a healthy endocannabinoid system. What else?
I would say like working out,
Love
exercise,
that.
being active. Granted, I will say since COVID, I've turned into a lazier person. But at the height of it, though, or like prior to it, like cannabis was such a part of my regimen that I was incorporating it before my workouts, and I was getting like the best workouts, and it was like almost to the point where it was like a meditative experience, like a meditative hour for me in that gym. And so I feel like that's really important if you want to like be your best. And I think eating healthy, like just practicing like healthier like lifestyle changes. I mean, everyone knows the typical stoner notion: you smoke and you're ordering pizzas and wings and whatnot. But like, no, that's not everyone. That's a very big like stereotype. Like if you really want to maximize like the benefits of it, you're living just a healthy lifestyle with cannabis incorporated into it. So
I love that. And what are your top 3 foods to eat to support a healthy endocannabinoid? Now that we're talking about healthy lifestyle changes, what food are there any specific foods that have been shown to support this system?
I guess foods heavy in omega-3 and omega-6.
yeah,
That's
so
what my
like
mom told
fish
me.
oil.
Omega
Fish oil
3s.
for sure. Like
Yep.
whenever people ask me about RSO, I hate how sticky it is, and like sublingually, like you're getting like the best benefits from it and like quicker onset, but like it's such like it's in your mouth for an hour. You can't talk to anyone without your breath like smelling like weed. It's not a pleasant experience. So what I like to tell people to do is to get a fish oil pill. So it's got the omega-3s, put your RSO dose on the pill itself, and you're giving it like a healthy fat to work off of. So like healthy fats, I feel like are essential, like MCT oils, avocado oil, fish oils.
Right, because you need the fat to help transport and break down
Precisely.
the cannabinoid.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I remember being told that. And so a lot of times if you take something and you're not eating a meal that has some healthy fats in it, there's no effect will take place.
There's no absorption. Yeah. You're hindering your own process. Yeah.
Exactly. All right. What are some other foods?
So if you want to be unhealthy.
No, we're talking about being healthy.
Okay. Talking about being healthy. I'd say like avocado, flax seeds, yeah, like peanuts, hemp seeds, hemp seeds,
some more fat.
Yeah,
right. I'm going to add in there
like healthy
protein,
fats.
Healthy fats, absolutely right. Not a tub of ice cream.
Lard, no ice cream.
Right. No, lard. I am a carnivore, and lard, if you're eating clean lard, it is a great high heat cooking oil to use. Or
really?
fat,
All right.
Fat
Can I ask you something a little off topic? Is bacon actually healthy?
Yes. If it is pasture raised and nitrate free, and obviously no sugar added to it for flavor, bacon is a great source of fat. And in the carnivore community, which is my community, we're all about mixing those fats, healthy fats, like a pasture raised pork and protein. That is your equation to satiety.
Wow. Who
Yeah.
would have thought? You
I
heard
know,
it here
right?
first.
Right. But I'm going to add, and not knowing the endocannabinoid system like you two do, I'm going to add protein rich foods. Like I think Diego had mentioned a little bit back, with all those amino acids and building muscle and maintaining that satiety. I think that protein rich foods are huge when using, especially on a recreational level, because so many people start binging on foods because they're hungry. So keep it with proteins and healthy fats.
Yeah, protein is super underrated macro. People don't really
Absolutely
care about. Like I know
it's the most important macronutrient.
I know. I know. Back when I was like lifting in college, like taking it really seriously, I'd eat this massive piece of chicken, and I'd only eat that, maybe with some vegetables, but I'd only eat that because I just wanted the protein. I
Right.
didn't care about the carbs. I mean, I liked fat, but I just wanted the protein. Everyone just like why do you like only eat chicken? Why do you do this? Like my vegan friends, they're always like, oh, why are you so obsessed with eating chicken? Like, don't you want to try this? And I'm like, no, it's protein. You need protein. You probably, it's probably not that important to you, but I need it because that repairs your muscles. It repairs all sorts of tissues. And that's how you grow, really.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. Protein is non-negotiable.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't take it seriously. So
That is very, very true.
You're gonna get some backlash from the vegans, just so you
know. Like plant-based proteins. I mean, it's good, I guess, but I mean, I don't want to be eating something and it only have like 12 grams of protein. I'd rather eat something that has like 30 or 40 grams.
Exactly.
In a meal.
You were speaking my language, Diego.
Right, yeah. You're just consuming an 800 calorie meal for 15 grams of protein. Like no.
Exactly. Yeah, that is a whole nother podcast.
Yeah.
Well, I have had an amazing time speaking with both of you and really learned a lot. And I'm sure my community is appreciative of hearing your perspectives on CBD and THC and breaking it all down for us. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, I want to thank you for having us.
Yes. And so I want to tell my community where they can find you. So they are at New Era, which is in Chicago on North Avenue if you're local, but they also have a full spectrum podcast, which is on all of the platforms, correct?
So everything besides Apple Music, right?
SoundCloud and Spotify.
SoundCloud. But the Instagram is Full Spectrum Podcast, and I'll put all of this in my show notes so you can find them and listen to all their amazing podcasts. And they also have where they work, New Era, which is NUERA. They have a Facebook page and an Instagram page, which I'll list as well. Is there any other information, anything upcoming on your podcast that you want to share with my community?
Look forward to us eventually getting on Apple Music. That is the next step.
Yeah. And please visit our website, neweraCannabis.com, for other types of news regarding our dispensary. We have a lot of exciting things. What is it that someone's coming to the dispensary that rapper who was in jail.
We have one of the Bone Thugs in Harmony.
Yeah.
I forget his name, but one of them is coming in, so that'll be a good time. That'll be on November 13th.
It'll be next Saturday.
Coming into the store?
Yeah, coming into the store. So
meet
that
and
should be a
greets
fun time.
and whatnot.
Does he have a product or something?
No.
I think he's just signing autographs for people. He went to prison in the early 2000s for 15 years?
Yeah, for cannabis related stuff. So now he's like a big advocate. And I mean, if you're a fan of Bone Thugs, come say what up. It's free.
I have no clue who that is, but I am going to look that up. I'm sure my kids do, but I have no clue, but I'm down. I'm going to learn. Well, thank you two again. And I look forward to seeing you in the future. And I'm absolutely going to jump on your podcast and listen to all those amazing topics. I took a peek at it. It's pretty vast. Good job on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have the whole series where we talk about just growing for people interested. We have a lot of guests who are just master growers who were growing in the 90s and early 2000s before the internet had all these resources or all these different strains, and they perfected it then, and they're just the plants they grow now are just incredible.
Yeah,
and they're experts.
We have so much stuff featured on there, from like that to like local like cannabis tours, to like seeing comedic events. Sometimes we do things at the Hideout, which is like a local venue that I think is pretty popular amongst the locals. So just
have you had Mindy Siegel on yet? So
no.
For those of you who don't know, who are not Chicagoans, I actually went to high school with Mindy Siegel. She is an amazing chef and baker, and has a local bakery in the Bucktown area called, well, now it's called Mindy's Bakery, but her restaurant used to be called Hot Chocolate.
Yes.
And she developed Mindy's edibles, which are sold obviously only in Illinois, or can you get them elsewhere?
I think she's expanding to California. Don't quote me, but I'm pretty sure I saw.
But her brand is Mindy's Edibles, and she has hard candies and gummies, and I love her stuff. Actually, I think she's done an amazing job, and she's got chocolates too. She's very creative.
Yeah. Shout out to her restaurant. Some of the best hot chocolate.
Yeah. Well, now it's the bakery.
Yeah.
She shut the restaurant down during COVID, and then debuted the bakery, which looks off the charts.
Wow.
Yeah. Too bad I don't eat like that, but if I did, I'd be there. All right. Well, guys, thanks again. Have a great rest of your day. And I'll put all of this information in the show notes, and I'm really excited for my community to hear this.
Same. Yeah, Thank you so much for having us again.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Lifestyle changes can be hard and overwhelming to make. By building your support team of functional medicine doctors, therapists, and health coaches, you can reach your optimal health goals. Be sure to check out my other podcasts. Until we meet again, stay healthy.